हाँ भाई, वेरी गुड आफ्टरनून। क्या चल रहा है? पढ़ रहे हो, नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, क्या कर रहे हो, बताओ। पढ़ रहे हो? ग्रेट। ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है कि पढ़ रहे हैं आप लोग। In my last lecture, perhaps that was on wildlife toxicology, I gave you some very good examples of that exhibited very nicely that what is the actual scope of science of wildlife toxicology. We will make a systematic study today, and in that systematic study, we shall study the birds, the fish, the small animals, and the large animals. And the approach will be uh, the it will not be the animals, but it will be the chemicals. How the different categories of chemicals they affect the wildlife. This we shall be studying. And the first category that we are going to discuss is the pesticides. And in pesticides, we do talk of chlorinated pesticides, organophosphate compounds, carbamates. We do talk of choline inhibitors, cholinesterase inhibitors, and we talk of reproductive poisons, we talk of teratogenesis, and so on. The best example of the pesticidal poisoning that we have is that of these aldrin DDT and the metabolite of DDT DDE is affecting the reproduction in birds, and how that is affecting, that is axial thinning. We discussed on the previous term also that the axial glands or the oviductal cells, they are not able to produce calcium because they compete with calcium, and the calcium secretion is less, so therefore the axial thinning occurs. It has been reported, this pesticidal poisoning has been reported in different, you see, families of the birds. We have Galliformis, where we find chicken. We have Falconiformis, where we have falcon. We have Columbiformis, where we have pigeons and all that. A very interesting observation has come from certain laboratories. That is, the small mammals like rats, like shrew, like raccoons, they are less susceptible to pesticide poisoning, whereas the birds are more susceptible to pesticide poisoning. And there are certain other cases where we have seen that these blackbirds and peasants, they are also less susceptible to pesticidal poisoning, and the columbiformis and falconiformis are more susceptible. Actually, as far as my idea or my opinion goes, it is the food chain. As you move higher into the food chain, the toxicity increases. This is along with the process of biomagnification. The concentration keeps on increasing, 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 and when you reach the top at the predator level in the food chain, you find the concentration is higher, and that the toxicity is also higher in these cases. Uh, the blackbirds, there used to be a very important bird in America, American condor, and American condor died only because of this process of biomagnification. There is a now we are conserving American condor through in situ and ex situ conservation techniques, but there was a time when the condor population declined very quickly, and it is only because of the effect of these pesticides. Then we have got another group, and that group deals with the polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Polyaromatic hydrocarbons we discussed the last time also. they come from forest fires, they come from volcanoes, they come from other industrial activities. Why the Australian animals died? Because of the polyaromatic hydrocarbons coming through forest fires. Why the grass burning generates the polyaromatic hydrocarbons. The California haze, California fires, they might have resulted into loss of so many birds only because of that. It is in addition to CO2. It is in addition to CO2. We discussed about CO2, but it is pH also that is affecting. The second thing that is important is that these pH, they come from oil, they come from electric generating processes, they come from the incinerators, they come from refuge incineration. We produce a lot of debris, we produce a lot of garbage, and now government of India says the garbage is not to be burned. If somebody burns it, he is to be punished. But that garbage leads to the formation of pH compounds, and these pH compounds through the air, through aquatic systems, through terrestrial systems, they enter into the food chain, and they affect the species. There are two methods of the decline of biodiversity. One is their habitat destruction, and another one is the pollution. So, at one case, the developmental activities keep on and they destroy the habitat. Another one, we keep on polluting the environment, whether it is aquatic or terrestrial, the life is affected, and ultimately wildlife is also affected. So, these are some of the examples. The next group of chemicals is the PCBs. PCBs and dioxins, they all are persistent pollutants. Means they are ubiquitous. Means they are present in the environment, and as such they enter into the food chain, and they affect the effect of PCBs on reproduction is very well documented. There is a very good worker Hill, and Hill keeps on talking of all these things in his papers, that these PCBs, dioxins, and the TCDD like compounds. TCDD, you know that the extensive work on the toxicology of TCDD has been done, but it has been mainly in insects, and it is not in reference to the wildlife. But when we talk of wildlife, we find that yes, these TCD and others, they enter into the food chain, and this is how they enter into this is how the bald eagles they vanished. Bald eagle is again a very important game bird. It used to be a game bird. Mainly the avian species that have become extinct or they are likely to become extinct, they are the game birds. They are the large birds. There was a time when people used to come to India to hunt the Indian great bustard. It used to be in Rajasthan. And the rich people from rich countries used to visit India as a tourist, and they used to kill the bustard. So then the legislation was brought up and the killing of the bustard was stopped. So such type of examples are there, that the large birds they accumulate large amount of these dangerous chemicals, and the result is they die. The next group of these next group is the ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation or nucleides are also affecting the wildlife. Wherever the radiation level is high, the animals are not able to breed. The same thing is with the noise also. Wherever the noise level is high, the animals are not able to breed. There was a report coming out from some gentleman. I am not remembering his name now. He studied the effect of the noise pollution in Delhi zoo animals, that the trains and the aeroplanes they keep on passing through the Delhi Zoo, and the Delhi Zoo animals they feel disturbed and they are not able to reproduce. So these type of examples are there. So the pesticides, all types of pesticides, they come through agricultural activities, they come through sprays, they come through runoffs, they come through different sources, and they affect the avian life as well as the wildlife. The small animals are much more affected than the large animals like elephants and rhinoceros and others. They are killed by the poachers, but they are less affected by these environmental chemicals. I do not mean that they are not these chemicals are not present in their fat bodies. They are present. I told you a day before that the methyl mercury entered into the polar bear. The polar bear lives in Arctic, and how the mercury has entered into polar bear? It is through the food chain. It traveled so much of distance, and ultimately it reached the predator. Similarly, I told you the example of the plastic that was found in the whale. The plastic went on going through different trophic levels and entered into the food chain of whale, and food chain sits at the top of the marine food chain. Polar bear sits at the top of the Arctic food chain. So these are some of the evidences that suggest that yes, it goes on. The next group of chemicals that affects wildlife are the heavy metals. And amongst heavy metals, I can quote very well. It is the most notorious one, which we say the lead. Lead, how does it affect the wildlife? I give you a very simple example. The people go to kill the birds. It's their hobby, a bad hobby, of course. They take out their gun and the dog and went to the forest areas, and they kill the birds. And when they kill the birds, the gunshots they use, that those gunshots, they contain lead. A single gunshot contains 250 milligrams of lead. And that these poor creatures, when they go for eating, by mistake, they also take those pellets. It has been found, it enters into the gizzards. When these birds died, and wildlife professionals, the veterinarians, they operated these birds, they found these pellets in their gizzard. You can imagine now the lead enters into the blood, and the lead kills these animals because the dose of 250 milligrams, or the bird has taken 2 pellets or 4 pellets, it becomes a great burden, a great load of the pollutant, and the poor bird dies. So this is how the waterfowls are dying in America. They just kill, and they have killed the bird, they removed the bird, the dog has fetched the bird and brought to the master, but the remaining pellets that were there, they were eaten up by ducks, they were eaten up by the seagulls, they were eaten up by herons, they were eaten up by other birds. One thing is very important, that the peasants are less susceptible. Peasants is a family of peacock. The peacock like birds, these birds, they are called as peasants. They are less effective. They are less affected by these ones. So lead is one of the notorious elements that causes poisoning in the birds. The second important is the cadmium. Cadmium is present in fertilizers. Cadmium comes through fly ash, cadmium comes through sewage disposal. There are many avenues through which the cadmium enters into the environment. Cadmium becomes the part of the food chain, and this is how the cadmium enters into the birds, and the birds die. We made a very good study maybe 2 years back. We monitored the status of the metallic pollution in western Uttar Pradesh by collecting the feathers of the birds. We used to collect the feathers of different birds. We collected feathers about 40 species of the birds which are native to the western Uttar Pradesh, and we examined them for different trace elements, heavy metals, including lead and cadmium, and you will be surprised to know that we got very, very interesting and very dangerous results. And those results were published in a very good journal, Environmental Pollution and Science Research, or something, very good journal. Ankita was a girl doing MSc, MPhil in our lab, and she performed this study. It was a very interesting study dealing with wildlife toxicology and monitoring of these chemicals in wildlife. They were all feral birds. They were not pet birds. They were all feral. Even parrot was studied, and other birds were studied. Even eagle was studied. Even kingfisher was studied. So these animals were studied. These third one is mercury. The polar bear has mercury. The methyl mercury enters into the fish. And methyl mercury enters into those piscivorous birds. Piscivorous means those birds, seagulls and others, those eat the fish. So if there are birds in and around Minamata Bay and they were eating the fish that was receiving the mercury effluents through the cheesochemical factory, they were eating mercury and they were dying through the paralysis, through nervous disorders, through liver kidney failure. All these things they result when the methyl mercury enters into their system. The next one is the selenium. Selenium, we had been talking, all these elements, toxicity of these we have been talking, but we had not been talking with reference to the wildlife. The selenium is again, you see, selenium is an essential element, but selenium is a toxic element also. The selenium comes into environment through sewage systems. Selenium comes through ashes. Selenium comes through mining activities, especially the mining of the phosphates. So that selenium enters into the wildlife, and it causes the hemorrhage. It causes the spinal deformities because selenium, higher amount of selenium leads to hemorrhage and the spinal activities in the birds. So in total, in the wildlife experiments have not been done on large animals. They have been done on small animals. They have been done on fish. They have been done on the birds. They have been done on aquatic birds, terrestrial birds, large birds, smaller birds. They have been done on small animals like rats, the shrews, the raccoons, the squirrels, and all that. And this information provides us a very good background that yes, the wildlife conservation should be a very important issue for the society to conserve the biodiversity, the natural biodiversity, and these chemicals or these POPs, the pesticides, PAH, PCBs, dioxins, they are playing a havoc with the wildlife. I think these tips will help you in preparing your subject on preparing for wildlife toxicology. We shall meet next with some another interesting topic. Thank you. Study well, keep safe, keep home. Thank you very much.